Chapter 2371. This was because inscriptionists had a variety of combat methods. Relying on inscription techniques, they could give themselves and the others all kinds of blessings and assistance. This was something that ordinary martial artists and soul cultivators did not have, or even lacked. Unless it was a martial artist and soul cultivator, whose strength far surpassed the group of inscriptionists. Otherwise, anyone who interfered in their battle would die easily. Under the blockade of Lung Yu Inscription City Lord and the others, the commotion at the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion was completely covered up. No one outside knew that there was a massacre going on in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion. Bang bang bang. The group of people from Tianfeng Inscription City had been severely injured in the inscription tower. Because of the grief in their hearts, they had not recovered much. On the other hand, Lung Yu Inscription City Lord and the others had already decided to kill and clean up the people from the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion tonight. Not only that, they had a great Buddha like Master Chen among them. Although it was difficult for him to recover from his own injuries, it was easy for him to heal the injuries of the inscriptionists from Lung Yu Inscription City. Not only that, the many inscription formations in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion were useless against him. He easily broke through the inscription mechanisms and formations that the inscriptionists of the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion relied on. He stood coldly to the side and watched as the people of Lung Yu Inscription City fought with the people of Tianfeng Inscription City. Because of Master Chen's existence, even if the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City were waiting for him, and had all sorts of mechanisms and formations to rely on, they still fell into a disadvantageous position against City Lord Lung Yu and the others. Bang! A high-level inscriptionist of Tianfeng Inscription City had his inscription defense broken by Lung Yu Inscription City Lord. In the next second, he was heavily smashed to the ground. You overestimate yourself. So what if you see through our tracks? You people of Tianfeng Inscription City can only wait for death. Lung Yu Inscription City Lord laughed loudly. If you know what's good for you, then immediately hand over that old man, Tianfeng Inscription City Lord. Kill him with your own hands, and deliver his head. If that's the case, I might give you a quick death. His laughter spread in the air. The faces of the people from Inscription City paled. They spat at him and said coldly, "You're dreaming. Lu Zhitong, a treacherous villain like you wants to take our master's head? Where's your face? Even if you don't mind that your hands are dirty, we do mind that you have sullied our master." The people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City were forced back by the people from Lung Yu Inscription City. But they didn't relent in the slightest. Their faces were pale as they looked at Master Chen, who had yet to make a move. They had never expected him to be so powerful. It was also because his master's inscription skills had been crippled. Otherwise, with the various formations and mechanisms in the City Lord's mansion, they definitely wouldn't be in such a sorry state. This was because the effects of the mechanisms and formations, controlled by different levels of strength, were absolutely different. Everyone was filled with grief and indignation. Lung Yuan City Lord was also angered by their words. He looked at them with a cold smile and said, "All right." Chapter 2372. Since that's the case, I'll kill all of you first, then drag that old man out and kill him. At that time, I'll let all of you go to hell, and have a good master and disciple relationship. As Lung Yu Inscription City Lord spoke, he immediately raised his hand, and an inscription pattern instantly formed in his hand. Then, he rushed towards the senior inscription master of Tianfeng Inscription City, who was knocked to the ground by him. At this moment, boom! In an instant, a figure rushed out from the depths of the inner court and blocked in front of the senior inscriptionist. Bang! An inscription pattern in his hand instantly shot out from his hand and collided with the inscription pattern that Lung Yu Inscription City Lord had shot out. In an instant, the two inscription patterns faced each other in midair. With a bang, the inscription pattern instantly shattered the inscription pattern that Lung Yu Inscription City Lord had shot out with an extremely tyrannical and terrifying speed. Not only that, the inscription pattern continued to blast towards Lung Yu Inscription City lord with an extremely tyrannical aura and power. Ah! Lungyu Inscription City Lord was waiting to kill the senior inscription master of Tianfeng Inscription City. How could he have thought that a person would suddenly rush out and not only block his attack, but also completely shatter his attack and blast it towards him? Lungyu Inscription City Lord hurriedly wanted to dodge, but this unforeseen event happened too quickly and too suddenly. He didn't even have time to react, and just as he moved his body, he was heavily struck by the inscription pattern. With a bang, he instantly let out a miserable cry and was sent tumbling back a few times by the terrifying power contained within. His entire aura was dispirited, and the power of the inscription pattern that he summoned also instantly dropped by who knows how many levels. You! He looked at the figure that appeared in front of him in shock and anger, and then his eyes widened. Zhang! You old man! It's you! Lungyu Inscription City Lord's face was filled with disbelief. How could it be Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, this old man? Didn't his natal inscription mark shatter when he was fighting for the inscription tower with Master Chun? How could he still use the power of inscriptions? Not only that, his inscription technique seemed to have improved. The power that just blasted out. Spirit Seal Master. You're a Spirit Seal Master? You old man! Lungyu Inscription City Lord thought as he gritted his teeth and shouted. Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, this old man, actually rose to the level of a Spirit Seal Master. Wasn't this old man stuck at this level and unable to break through for many years? How did he break through all of a sudden? Also, what was going on with his shattered life inscription mark? Could it be that he's pretending to be a cripple? But that's not right. If this old man hadn't been crippled, how could he have allowed them to succeed in the inscription tower? One had to know that if it wasn't for Song Chung and his disciple, they wouldn't be in such a situation and would have obtained the inscription tower long ago. Why would they sneak into the night to ambush them? What the hell is this old man doing? Chapter 2373. This is impossible. The other party's strength was crippled with his own eyes. The natal inscription mark self-destructed, and his inscription strength could no longer be used. What was going on? How could the other party's inscription strength recover? Not only that, but it had also risen to the level of a spirit print master. Master Chen's face was solemn. All of this had already exceeded his understanding, and in the dark, there was a cold light that flashed fiercely. The inscription strength has recovered? Yu Miqian looked at the scene in front of him, his figure hidden in the dark. On that fairy-like face, his eyes narrowed slightly. If he remembered correctly, this Tianfeng Inscription City Lord had already self-destructed his natal inscription mark, right? He could still recover his strength. Yu Miqian raised his eyebrows slightly. It seemed that his trip to Tianfeng Inscription City to capture Chun Meng was not in vain. Just as his eyebrows were slightly raised, in the depths of the inner courtyard, Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng's figures appeared in front of everyone. You didn't expect this, right? Lu Zhidong. You shameless fellows, taking advantage of my master's loss of strength. You actually came to attack our Tianfeng Inscription City Lord Mansion. Today we will make you unable to return. Song Cheng's head was held high, and his eyes were filled with coldness as he looked at Lungyu Inscription City Lord and the others. When Lungyu Inscription City Lord and the others saw him and Luo Qingtong, they immediately exclaimed, You're actually not dead. Lungyu Inscription City Lord looked at Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng with wide eyes, and his heart was in a mess. Didn't Master Chen say that they were already dead? What was going on? He looked at Master Chen, who was not far away, anxiously. The latter was also shocked by the appearance of Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng. So it's you. He looked coldly in the direction of Luo Qingtong. You're actually not dead. Was it you? Did you get the thing there? Master Chen's voice was almost crazy. He had clearly thrown Song Cheng to the entrance of the 7th floor. When he was blasted away by the inscription tower, he saw Luo Qingtong rushing over. It was impossible that the two of them were still alive. Since they were still alive, it meant that they had obtained the item on the 7th floor. Most importantly, Luo Qingtong should have gotten it. This Xieqi. He looked coldly at Luo Qingtong. His eyes were filled with coldness and fanaticism. The other party had obtained something from the 7th floor. What did that mean? That meant that even if he couldn't obtain the inscription tower, he would still be able to obtain the items on the 7th floor. As long as he could kill this young man in front of him. Ha ha ha. There's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. There's no door to hell, but you've barged in. Do you think that old man, Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord, can deal with me just because he has recovered his strength? Master Chen's eyes were cold and filled with killing intent as he looked at Luo Qingtong and the others. His tongue was like a poisonous snake's tongue as he licked his lips. Then he sneered at Luo Qingtong and the others and said, "Today, I'll show you what a real heavenly spiritual seal master and battle spirit master is like. Even if my strength has been severely damaged, and I'm only at the level of a mortal spiritual seal master, I'm not someone that can be defeated by a random spiritual seal master. Not to mention that this person is just a newly promoted spiritual seal master." Master Chen's voice was so cold that it seemed to come from hell. He looked in the direction of Luo Qingtong and the others and laughed strangely. Chapter 2374. Boom! Countless inscription patterns appeared around his body in an instant. Each of these inscription patterns was brimming with an incomparably majestic aura. It was far from what an ordinary high-level inscription master could compare to. Spirit Seal Master. Not only that, he was also an extremely strong human-level Spirit Seal Master. And this was because Master Chen had been tricked by Luo Qingtong in the inscription tower. He had smashed into the light at the entrance to the 7th floor, and was injured instead. Otherwise, at this moment, the power of a heaven-level Spirit Seal Master was apparent. In an instant, he could control all the inscription formations and mechanisms in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion. At the same time, once that vast and majestic power was released, it would be able to intimidate everyone, including the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City, to the point of lying down. However, at this moment, his strength had been greatly reduced. His life inscription mark had been damaged, and he could only release strength comparable to a human-level Spirit Seal Master. However, even so, it was enough to take care of these people from Tianfeng Inscription City. As Master Chen thought about this, his expression became indescribably cold. With a boom, he attacked Luo Qingtong. When the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City saw this scene, his face turned cold as he flicked his sleeve and went forward to meet him. "Cheng-er, protect your disciple," the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City said in a deep voice. Although he didn't know why Master Chen wanted to kill Luo Qingtong. However, when he thought about what the other party had said in his madness, it was obvious that this had something to do with Luo Qingtong and the others safely walking out of the inscription tower. It was very likely that the thing that Master Chen was after was on Luo Qingtong. In fact, the reason why Song Cheng's inscription talent was able to grow from nothing was also because of Luo Qingtong. And the reason why his inscription strength could recover was also because of this, right? Since that was the case, then he couldn't let Master Chen hurt Luo Qingtong. Bang! The inscription power of both sides collided. The City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City was also a Spirit Seal Master, and the inscription power surrounding his body was not weaker than Master Chen's. However, between the Heaven-level Inscription Master and the Human-level Inscription Master, there was still a large amount of inscription comprehension and the ability to dissolve experience. Although Master Chen was unable to reveal the strength of a Heaven-level Spirit Seal Master, his understanding of inscription techniques was far above that of the City Lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription. The inscription patterns around him kept spinning, and actually managed to disperse most of the power of the inscription patterns that the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord sent over. With this series of actions, the power of the inscription pattern unleashed by the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord instantly fell into a disadvantageous position. Haha. I've said it before, there's a huge difference between a real heaven-level spiritual print master and a human-level spiritual print master. Not to mention that you have just become a spirit print master. Master Chen's voice was full of arrogance. Even if his strength had dropped to the level of a mortal-level spirit print master, Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, who was also a mortal-level spirit print master, would not be able to stop him. He was determined to get the item on Xieqi. Speaking of which, he had to thank the other party for overestimating himself and thinking too highly of himself. Did he think that just because he obtained that item from the inscription tower, he would be able to rely on the recovered strength of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord to deal with him? What a joke! As long as he stood here, the people of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord's mansion would all die. Humph. Chapter 2375. Xieqi, come over here obediently. Seeing Master Chen rushing towards Luo Qingtong with his claws like hooks, Song Qing's face instantly turned gloomy. Damn it, how can this bastard Chen be so strong? He had been seriously injured and his strength had fallen to the level of a human-level spirit seal master. But he was still able to unleash such a strong power. His master, the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City, had already far surpassed the strength and comprehension of an ordinary spirit seal master. Long before he had completely condensed the inscription mark, the city lord's strength was already about the same as an ordinary spirit seal master. Now that his strength had increased, almost no one among the ordinary human-level spirit seal masters was his match. But now, he was easily blasted away by Master Chen. The other party's strength was actually so strong. It wasn't until now that Song Cheng realized what every higher level of inscription master meant to inscriptionists like him. At the same level of inscription master, his master, the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City, was actually unable to do anything to Master Chen. When Leng Yu Inscription City Lord saw this scene, he was overjoyed. Ha ha ha, people of Tianfeng Inscription City, how can trash like you be a match for Master Chen? He said proudly. Master Chen is a heaven-level spirit seal master. Even if his strength has fallen to the level of a human-level spirit seal master, he is still not someone you can compare to. Seeing that the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City had been blasted away, and that the strongest person in the group could not stop Master Chen, Leng Yu Inscription City Lord's face was filled with pride. Even if the people of Tianfeng Inscription City were waiting for him. So what if the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City had recovered his strength? In the end, he could only die in their hands. Moreover, he could only die with his eyes wide open and in despair. Ha ha ha. His laughter was sharp. As for Master Chen, he had already rushed in front of Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng. The latter gritted his teeth and rushed forward. Disciple run! Song Cheng shouted loudly. He knew that with Luo Qingtong's ability, she would definitely be able to escape. As long as she didn't care about them, she would definitely be able to do it. Luo Qingtong's innate talent was strong, and her inscription technique was top-notch. In the future, when she grew up, her strength would definitely be limitless. Not to mention that the young girl had obtained the item from the 7th level of the inscription tower. Even though he didn't know what was on the 7th floor of the inscription tower, he didn't know what it was. But looking at the increase in his inscription talent, and the recovery of his master's inscription skills, Song Cheng knew that this thing was definitely not ordinary. As long as Luo Qingtong could escape, she would definitely avenge them in the future. Master Chen wouldn't be able to hurt his precious disciple. As Song Cheng rushed toward Master Chen, the latter snorted and shouted, "You overestimate yourself. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Master Chen didn't care about the strength of the high-level inscriptionists in Song City. Even the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, who had reached the level of a spirit seal master, could not do anything to him, let alone Song Cheng, who was only a high-level inscription master. He was only here to die. As for how the other party's inscription talent increased, he also knew. It must be because of the item on the 7th level that Luo Qingtong had obtained. Thinking of this, an extremely greedy expression appeared on Master Chen's face. Chapter 2376. Go to hell. As he spoke, he raised his hand and sent an inscription pattern flying toward Song Cheng. Looking at the vast and majestic power, Song Cheng didn't dodge at all and directly rushed forward. "You be asterisk starred eye." His voice had just reached this point when Luo Qingtong's voice instantly rang out. "All right, master, come back. You don't have to risk your life just because of them." As these words were spoken, In an instant, boom, boom, boom. Waves of violent and vast power instantly attacked from all directions of the heavenly wind inscription City Lord's mansion. It was the inscription arrays and mechanisms in the Tianfeng City Lord mansion that had been previously controlled by Master Chen. All of them were activated. Luo Qingtong stood in the inner courtyard of the Tianfeng City Lord mansion and looked at Master Chen with an extremely evil and cold gaze. Bang! She waved her hand fiercely. In the next second, the flickering jade color in the young man's sleeves waved and spread out into a fan shape in midair, swaying gently in front of Luo Qingtong. The inscription array formations and mechanisms of the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord Mansion, which had been seen through by Luo Qingtong and controlled by her eye technique, instantly flew towards Master Chen, who was about to attack Song City. Boom, boom, boom. The violent and unrestrained power instantly collided with the power of the inscription pattern that Master Chen had blasted out. Waves of extremely terrifying energy surged out from the center of the collision, causing Song Cheng and Master Chen to retreat violently. Puff! Master Chen suddenly clutched his chest and raised his head to spit out a mouthful of blood. He looked at Luo Qingtong with a shocked expression and unstable breathing. His face was full of disbelief. How is this possible? I have clearly controlled the arrays and mechanisms in the City Lord Mansion. How can you possibly use them? Master Chen's face was filled with shock and horror. He had accepted that Luo Qingtong had obtained the item on the 7th floor. However, her inscription skills were obviously inferior to his. In the inscription tower, she had relied on the special effects of the inscription tower to defeat him. Now that they were outside the inscription tower, her strength was obviously inferior to his. How could she control the inscription arrays and mechanisms in the City Lord Mansion? One had to know that all of this required inscription skills to control. Master Chen's voice was hysterical, but Luo Qingtong's expression was indifferent. The jade fan in her hand lightly brushed the scattered hair on her forehead, making her look like a fairy. The smile that appeared at the corner of her lips was abnormally evil and charming. How is it impossible? Only those who are stronger than you can control these arrays and mechanisms. Unfortunately, I don't need it. Luo Qingtong's voice was light. Even though he had purposely lowered his voice a little, causing his voice to have the hoarseness of a youth, it was still as cold as a spring. It sounded like ice and jade colliding with each other, extremely pleasant to the ears and clear to the extreme. Bang! As Luo Qingtong's voice sounded, she waved her sleeve again. Boom, boom, boom. Under the wave of Luo Qingtong's sleeves, waves of violent and terrifying power once again blasted towards Master Chen. Just now, she had been standing there motionlessly, not because she was afraid of Master Chen, but because she was using her eye technique to break the other party's control. Now the inscription arrays and mechanisms in the City Lord Mansion were all controlled by Luo Qingtong. Chapter 2377. Boom, boom, boom. The sound that came from the air was as strong as a drum. Everyone in Tianfeng Inscription City was awakened by the sound that came from the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion. What's going on? It's the City Lord's mansion. This voice came from the City Lord's mansion. Not good. The City Lord's mansion is under attack. Gather, everyone gather. In the Tianfeng Inscription City, everyone who heard the vast voice in the air started to move. The entire Tianfeng Inscription City was brightly lit. When these voices rang out, the complexion of Lung Yu City Lord and the others in the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord's mansion also abruptly turned pale. Not good, the matter has been exposed. Everyone was very anxious in their hearts. The reason why they dared to attack the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord and the others was because Master Chen was here to seal off the movements in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion. After they killed all the people in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's group, they were afraid that the other people in the Tianfeng Inscription City would notice the situation here. However, at this moment, under the control of Luo Qingtong, the commotion in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion was instantly spread out. At that time, no matter how strong they were, they wouldn't be able to fight against an entire city. Not to mention, there was still the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord and the others who hadn't suffered any heavy injuries yet. Master Chen, the matter has been exposed. Let's leave quickly. Lung Yu and the others hurriedly called out to Master Chen. Idiot. What's the use of you leaving now? Master Chen's gaze was vicious as he looked at the formation and mechanism power of the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion that was rushing towards him. His voice was extremely cold. When tomorrow comes, won't you all still be in big trouble? And he would never give up on the item in Luo Qingtong's hands. After today, who knew where this young man named Xie would run off to? She had to die here today, and let him obtain the treasure from the 7th level of the inscription tower. The more powerful Luo Qingtong was, the more unwilling Master Chen was to let her go. Especially at this moment, the power that Luo Qingtong revealed, to be able to control the inscription formation in the City Lord's mansion, clearly didn't come from the thing hidden on the 7th floor of the inscription tower. There were other secrets hidden in the other party's body. Thinking of this, Master Chen's heart was boiling with greed. In the darkness, Yu Mingqian's eyes flashed. His glass-like eyes stared at Luo Qingtong. The dark light in his eyes was so deep that it suppressed the star-like light on the surface of his eyes. Xie Songcheng's disciple? He raised his eyebrows slightly. Originally, he thought that he was just a small pawn that he didn't need to pay attention to. However, he didn't expect the other party to give him a surprise. He was actually able to seize control of the inscription mechanism and formation in the City Lord's mansion from Chen Meng's hands. Interesting. Yu Mingqian's eyes, which were hidden in the dark, were filled with interest. The corner of his lips curled up slightly as he continued to look at the scene in the City Lord's mansion. The black-clothed man at the side asked him if he should make a move, but he directly suppressed it. Let's continue watching. It was impossible for Chen Meng to only have this little ability. He wanted to see how that youth called Xie would deal with it. Chapter 2378. Yu Mingqian's eyes flashed and fixed on Luo Qingtong. At this moment, in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion, Master Chen directly made his move after saying those words to the people of Lungyu Inscription City. Bang! The inscription power around him surged, and with a boom, he summoned an inscription pattern in front of him that emitted an endless fierce aura. Battle inscription pattern. Seeing this scene, the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City, who was supported by everyone, suddenly let out a cry of surprise. The people of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord's mansion behind him also cried out in alarm and turned pale. Battle inscription mark. They had all forgotten that this Master Chen was also a battle spirit master. The group of people originally thought that Luo Qingtong was in control of the situation and were rejoicing, but their mood instantly tightened. Xie, the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and was about to charge forward again. Song Cheng, who was not far away from him, did the same. However, before they could even move, a voice rang out. Boom! The sword qi condensed from the battle inscription pattern in Master Chen's hand instantly cut through the power of the inscription formations and mechanisms that came from all directions. Haha, brat. Do you think you can stop me like this? Master Chen's lips curled into a bloodthirsty and ruthless smile. The injuries on his body were extremely serious. If he could not use the battle inscription mark, he would not use it. In the end, he was forced to use it by Luo Qingtong. At this moment, even if his injuries were to worsen, he was going to kill this monstrous young man. Seize all the opportunities and benefits in his hands. Go to hell. He waved his hand, and in an instant, countless sword qi formed by the battle inscription mark rushed towards Luo Qingtong like locusts in a rain of arrows. Along the way, no matter what inscription formation or mechanism it encountered, it was all shattered. The rain of sword qi rushed towards Luo Qingtong with an extremely powerful and murderous aura. Disciple. Seeing this scene, Song Cheng's face was filled with an indescribable rage. He desperately rushed in the direction of Luo Qingtong. But no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't catch up. The power of Master Chen's battle inscription patterns was simply too fast. Not to mention Song City, even Heavenly Wind Engraving City's City Lord could barely catch up. However, even if he made it in time, There was no way he could stop Master Chen's attack. The battle inscription mark had an absolute advantage over any inscription pattern above the spirit print master level. Unless the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord immediately became a heavenly level spirit seal master, he would be able to suppress this battle inscription with power several times stronger than Master Chen's. Otherwise, he and Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to escape. But how was that possible? His strength had just reached the level of Spirit Print Master, and he hadn't even consolidated it yet. How could he possibly make another breakthrough? Even if he tried to force it, it would be too late. Master Chen was a heavenly level Spirit Seal Master. If he didn't have a solid foundation as a heavenly level Spirit Seal Master, he wouldn't be able to resist the battle inscription mark he sent out. No matter how he thought about it, it was a sure death situation. Seeing that Master Chen's attack was about to hit Luo Qingtong and Heavenly Wind Engraving City's City Lord, the group of people from Heavenly Wind Engraving City's City Lord Mansion had a sorrowful expression on their faces. Master! Xieqi. Chapter 2379. Good. Haha. After killing them, we'll immediately wash the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion with blood and leave immediately. Haha. Master Chen is mighty. The group of people from Lungyu Inscription City clamored. Looking at the people from Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion, their hearts were filled with killing intent. Once Xieqi and the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord died, wouldn't they be able to wreak havoc in the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion? In less than a moment, they would be able to kill all the people from the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion. Haha. At that time, even if the other people from Tianfeng Inscription City came, they wouldn't be able to catch up. Thinking of this, the group of people from Lungyu Inscription City were extremely pleased. At this moment, Luo Qingtong looked at the rain of sword energy that was rushing towards her and the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord. She said to the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, "Ancestor, do you believe me?" Her voice was indifferent, as if she wasn't facing a situation of certain death. At this moment, the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord was facing the rain of sword chi. He was thinking of a way to block the rain of sword chi at lightning speed. However, no matter how he thought, even if he detonated his life inscription mark again, the chances of him being able to save Luo Qingtong were less than 50%. The battle inscription mark was simply too terrifying. However, at this moment, Luo Qingtong's voice rang out, causing him to be stunned. He looked at the youth in front of him, who had an indifferent expression and didn't have the slightest trace of panic. He didn't know why, but his heart was inexplicably certain. "I believe. Of course I believe," he said without hesitation. Luo Qingtong had helped him recover his inscription strength, and now she was helping their Tianfeng Inscription City block the disaster. If he still couldn't wholeheartedly trust Luo Qingtong, then what else could be worthy of his trust? "Alright, ancestor, release your mind and even the defense of your soul," Luo Qingtong said to the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord. The latter was only slightly stunned before immediately doing as he was told. Boom! Luo Qingtong's hand directly pressed on the back of the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, because the latter had rushed over in a hurry and stood in front of her. Luo Qingtong's palm landed squarely on his chest. At the same time, Luo Qingtong lowered her head. In an instant, her eyes were as red as blood. Countless streaks of bloody light swept across the sky, dyeing the whites of Luo Qingtong's eyes and eyeballs crimson like blood. In an instant, a connection was established between Luo Qingtong and the City Lord of Sky Wind Inscription City. Sharing. Paragon Eye Technique sharing. Everything about Luo Qingtong could be shared with the person she chose. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a bloody light, and she directly shared the battle inscription pattern on the 6th floor with the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City. That battle inscription mark had been shattered by the light at the entrance of the 7th level. It was impossible for Luo Qingtong to use it again. But the City Lord of Tianfeng Inscription City was different. He was a true spirit seal master, and at the same time, an expert of the human martial realm. As long as Luo Qingtong passed the method of copying the battle inscription mark in her mind to him, he would be able to copy it in an instant. This was originally an ability that belonged to Luo Qingtong, but at this moment, she shared this ability with the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City. Chapter 2380. Boom! The moment Luo Qingtong established a connection with the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. In an instant, the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City felt as if there was something extra in his mind. His face was filled with shock, and before he could even react, his hand had already started to draw in the air. Lines of inscription patterns instantly appeared in front of him. Roar! As the inscription pattern under the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City took shape, in an instant, the illusory figures of demonic beasts rushed out from the inscription pattern he had drawn. Battle Inscription Mark. What the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City had drawn was also a battle inscription mark. Bang! The rain of sword chi that was rushing towards Luo Qingtong instantly collided with the illusory figures of the demonic beasts that had jumped out in front of the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City. In an instant, countless demonic beasts roared, accompanied by the sound of the sword chi rain curtain breaking, resounded loudly. Bang bang bang! Countless flying sword locusts collided and broke in front of everyone, or were bitten and scratched by the demonic beasts that were formed from the sword locusts. In the blink of an eye, the curtain of sharp swords was shattered and disappeared in the air. This. When Lung Yu Inscription City Lord and the rest of the people from Tianfeng Inscription City Lord's mansion saw this scene, they immediately widened their eyes. The city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City and the others were shocked, but the people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City were overjoyed. Battle Inscription Mark. Master also knows how to inscribe Battle Inscription Mark. Oh my god! Didn't Master just finish his advancement? How could he know how to inscribe Battle Inscription Mark? The people of Heavenly Wind Inscription City were pleasantly surprised. They had never thought that the city lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City, who had just advanced to Spirit Seal Master, would actually be able to inscribe Battle Inscription Mark at the beginning of his advancement. After all, that was something that required a long period of practice and comprehension to be able to inscribe. In this world, those who had advanced to the Spirit Seal Master realm might be able to learn the Battle Inscription Mark. However, not everyone was able to successfully comprehend it. Not to mention, the power of the battle inscription that the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City used was not inferior to Master Chen at all. It was as if it had been tempered thousands of times. This was too shocking. As for Lung Yu Wen and the others, their mouths were already wide open, not knowing what to say. How is this possible? How is this possible? Cold Jade Inscription City Lord muttered to himself. He couldn't believe what was happening in front of him. To him, the fact that the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord was able to inscribe battle inscription patterns was even more unacceptable to him than the fact that Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord had recovered his strength and become a Spirit Seal Master. How could this be? Master Chun was a heaven-level Spirit Seal Master and an expert of the human martial arts realm, so he was able to inscribe battle inscriptions. Who was that old man of Tianfeng Inscription City Lord? He could also inscribe battle inscriptions. He didn't believe it. He couldn't believe it no matter what. However, the truth was right in front of his eyes. When the city lord of Lung Yuan saw the sword chi that Master Chun had sent out shattering one by one, his vision turned black. He didn't know what to say. As for Master Chun, when he saw the demonic beast mark that had broken through his rain of sword chi, his face twitched violently. Chapter 2381. Previously, when he was in the inscription tower, Luo Qingtong's move had broken his battle inscription imprint's power and sent him out of the inscription tower. However, at that time, Luo Qingtong had clearly been destroyed by the light at the entrance of the 7th floor in order to save Song Chung. He had seen it with his own eyes before he left. How could the other party still be able to use this battle inscription pattern? No, that's not right. This battle inscription pattern was not cast by Luo Qingtong, but by the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription Tower. What was going on? Master Chen, who had reacted, was even more shocked and depressed. Whether it was Luo Qingtong or the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower, he couldn't believe that they were able to use this battle inscription pattern. This was clearly something that shouldn't have happened. Just as Master Chen was in shock, the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower suddenly woke up from the fact that he was able to inscribe battle inscription patterns. With a boom, he rushed towards Master Chen's location. He didn't have time to ask Luo Qingtong how she did it. After all, the youth was on their side and helping them. So how the other party did it wasn't important at all. In fact, as long as Luo Qingtong didn't say anything, he wouldn't take the initiative to ask. And now, he wanted to take Master Chen's life while he was sick. Otherwise, the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower didn't know how long he could use the battle inscription pattern. If there was a limit to what Luo Qingtong could do, then he would miss the opportunity if he hesitated for a moment. By the time Master Chen realized what was going on, all of them would have no choice but to wait for their deaths. The city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower's movements were extremely fast. Almost at the same time that the rain of sword light was completely shattered, the inscription pattern in his hand was already ready to attack. After rushing in front of Master Chen, with a boom, the inscription pattern in his hand attacked Master Chen. The latter was still in shock when he sensed the arrival of the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower. He was shocked and hurriedly dodged. However, the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower wanted to kill him, so how could he let him dodge? Boom boom boom. The power of the inscription pattern around the city lord of Tianfeng inscription tower activated repeatedly and directly charged towards Master Chen's left, middle and bottom. This cut off Master Chen's path of escape. Not only that, the demonic beasts that had shattered the rain of sword light did not disappear. Instead, they roared loudly and charged towards Master Chen. Luo Qingtong's forehead was also covered in cold sweat. The power of the battle inscription pattern was too strong. She had to share it with the city lord, which would consume a lot of her mental energy. He could at most hold on for 100 breaths of time before the power of the battle inscription pattern disappeared completely. At that time, the city lord of Tian inscription tower, Tianfeng Chen, Chen, and Master Chen lord. Master Chen was masters, Master Chen tower, master tower. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She raised the life and death yin-yang sword in her hand and was about to strike. Masters to Tians to master to God, to master to raise? To raise to be to Luo. Master, let's attack together, she said to Song Cheng. Chapter 2382. However, Song Cheng had experienced Luo Qingtong sharing her power with him before. After thinking for a bit, he knew that this must have been done by Luo Qingtong. Oh my God, this disciple of mine is simply going to heaven. How can she share this with others? How is Luo Qingtong a human? She is clearly a walking treasure. Song Cheng previously couldn't figure out why Luo Qingtong had to be so secretive when she was with him. She wasn't willing to show her face in tracks, and she even insisted that he arrange a new identity for her. Although Song Cheng had done everything according to Luo Qingtong's instructions, he still felt that Luo Qingtong was too cautious. However, now it seemed that Luo Qingtong wasn't being overly cautious. She should have been more cautious. Oh my God! Song Cheng didn't dare to imagine what kind of sensation Luo Qingtong's ability would cause if others knew about it. She was able to let people who didn't have the talent for inscription and let people who didn't know how to inscribe battle inscriptions to learn battle inscriptions directly. Moreover, she was able to do it so directly. Her proficiency was extremely high, as if she had been tempered thousands of times. Didn't that mean that as long as one had Luo Qingtong, they would have endless power and might? As long as it was something she knew, she could give it to others. This was really too terrifying. Song Cheng shivered and decided that he would help Luo Qingtong keep this secret even if he had to die. Otherwise, if word got out, Luo Qingtong wouldn't be able to live peacefully for the rest of her life. His disciple was really prepared for a rainy day and was extremely cautious. This is good, this is very good. Song Cheng was still in a state of shock. Almost as soon as Luo Qingtong called him, He immediately reacted and rushed towards Master Chen. Even if Luo Qingtong didn't say anything, he would still help the other party kill this Master Chen. He definitely couldn't let the other party escape and threaten Luo Qingtong's safety. Just as Song Cheng was about to charge at Master Chen, Luo Qingtong released the inscriptions in her hand. Suddenly, the power of a high-level rune master was released and blasted toward Master Chen. At the same time, her eyes were cold as she looked at Master Chen. She said to Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, "Grandmaster, Dao change. Attack him 3 steps to his left, 4 steps to his right, and 3 steps to his left." Hearing Luo Qingtong's words, Tianfeng Inscription City Lord immediately changed the direction of the inscription pattern. He was aiming at Master Chen. In an instant, Master Chen's face was filled with shock and fear. What Luo Qingtong called out was precisely where he was about to risk his life to escape from the encirclement of the Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord. All of his strength rushed towards the 4 directions where Tianfeng Inscription City Lord was attacking him. And the flaw and escape route he left behind was precisely the one that Luo Qingtong had pointed out. He tried his best to retract the power he had unleashed. However, the attack had already been unleashed. How could it be retracted so quickly? Moreover, even if he forcefully retracted the power, it was already too late. Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng's attacks had already followed the direction of the power he had unleashed. As long as he retracted the power, at the same time he would be forcefully counterattacked. He would also be blocked by Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng's attacks. How could it be like this? How could things turn out like this? Master Chen's heart was filled with shock and anger. He didn't know how his thoughts were seen through by Luo Qingtong. Chapter 2383. Bastard! You brat who is still wet behind the ears. Master Chen's face was filled with extreme anger. He looked at the young man with a cold expression and a golden mask on his face. He looked like an immortal and a devil at the same time. He was so angry that he wanted to grind his teeth until they broke. "Xie Qi, I'll remember you," Master Chen roared angrily. At this moment where there was no way to retreat and no way to force him, he could only fiercely summon the life inscription mark in his body and meet the attack of the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City. Boom! Not daring to clash with Luo Qingtong, this monstrous youth who couldn't be judged by common sense, Master Chen broke through the attack of Tianfeng Inscription City Lord and directly disappeared from the spot. Just you wait. In the sky, only his bloodthirsty roar was left. "I will definitely be back. Xie Qi, when the time comes, it will be your time of death." Master Chen's voice disappeared in midair. On the ground, only a large amount of blood dripped from him was left, self-destructing the life inscription mark. Even if Master Chen blocked the attack of Tianfeng Inscription City Lord, he was still severely injured. "I'm afraid that I've already lost most of my strength. I'm not even as good as a senior inscriptionist." Unfortunately, Master Chen didn't know that as long as he held on for a little longer, the battle inscription mark that Luo Qingtong shared with Tianfeng Inscription City Lord would be up. He didn't need to escape at all. As long as he could hold on for a period of time, he could immediately join forces with Lungyu Inscription City Lord and the others to counterattack. The corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly. She looked at the place where Master Chen had disappeared and gave Song Cheng some instructions. Then she flew out. Song Cheng and Tianfeng Inscription City Lord didn't even react when Master Chen self-destructed his life inscription mark to escape. They had almost killed a heaven-level spirit print master. They actually did it. The two of them were startled. Not far away, Lungyu Inscription City Lord and the others were about to go crazy. They watched as Master Chen self-destructed his life inscription mark and left. They couldn't believe this fact. How is this possible? How is this possible? Everyone was shocked and on the verge of collapse. That was a heaven-level spirit imprint master and battle soul master. Although the opponent's strength had decreased due to the heavy injuries he had suffered earlier, it should not be something that the City Lord of Heavenly Wind Inscription City and the others could deal with. The situation in the inscription tower was special, so they accepted it. But what was going on now? Who could tell them? How could things be so fantastical? City Lord Lung Yu and the others held their heads in disbelief. After Song Chung and Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lords recovered from their shock, they immediately ordered their men to surround and kill them. Today, none of the people who attacked their Heavenly Wind Inscription City would be able to escape. As for Lung Yu and the others, they couldn't escape either. Without Master Chen, their group would not be able to withstand a single blow from the City Lord and the others. Not to mention, the other people from Heavenly Wind Inscription City had also gathered and rushed over. While Heavenly Wind Inscription City Lord and the others were cleaning up Lung Yu and the others in the City Lord's mansion, Luo Qingtong opened her blood-red eyes and chased after Master Chen out of the city. Boom! Chapter 2384. With a bang, Master Chen's path was blocked. His originally translucent figure that was hidden in the air was suddenly revealed. You can actually see through my escape technique. Master Chen looked at the young man in front of him in disbelief. The patterns on the golden mask on Luo Qingtong's face seemed to be mocking him. The corners of Luo Qingtong's lips curled up slightly as she looked at him mockingly. She flicked the jade fan in her right hand and looked at him casually. What's wrong? Is it that difficult to see through your tracks? A bloody light flashed in Luo Qingtong's eyes. Don't forget that I attacked you just now. Luo Qingtong misled Master Chen, making him mistakenly think that she had done something to him before. In fact, Luo Qingtong was able to see through Master Chen's tracks entirely because of her bloody eyes. But why would she tell him such a thing? Just let the other party guess in fear and trepidation. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Luo Qingtong's eyes glanced at the scene on the side. Then she said to Master Chen, Master Chen, do you want me to do it for you? Or do you want to do it yourself? Luo Qingtong's words were very obvious. It was whether Master Chen wanted to die, or she wanted to kill him. Hearing this, Master Chen's face instantly turned pale. He looked at the masked young man who was standing in front of him, waving the jade fan gently. His heart was filled with indescribable fear and unwillingness. Who the hell are you? Xieqi, in this endless star field, your name has never appeared in the world. However, with the ability and talent that you have shown at this moment, as well as your outstanding inscription technique talent, you can't be a nobody. Who the hell are you? Did you come to the Tianfeng domain to find me, and the thing on the 7th floor of the inscription tower? Master Chen's voice was hoarse. If he had only had some doubts before, he was now certain of it. The other party's strength and ability were unfathomable. It was impossible for him to be an ordinary person. However, his actions were so secretive that it was impossible for ordinary people to know his goal. How did she know? How did he coincidentally sneak into Heavenly Wind Inscription City and borrow his strength to enter the 7th level? That's right. As far as Master Chen was concerned, perhaps the reason why Luo Qingtong was able to enter the 7th level of the inscription tower was because he'd forcefully charged through the light at the entrance to the 7th level, causing a flaw to appear in the light at the entrance to the 7th level. That was why Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng were able to succeed. However, how did the other party know that his goal was the 7th floor of the inscription tower and set him up to attack the light at the entrance of the 7th floor? Master Chen's mind was dark and suspicious. He didn't believe that a person like Luo Qingtong just happened to appear in this Heavenly Wind Inscription City and was only going against him for Song City. If he misunderstood, it would save Luo Qingtong the trouble of explaining. The more the other party imagined, the better. It would save her the trouble of thinking of excuses and reasons to cover up her lie. After all, the fact that she came from the True Spill continent, a 9th grade star field, could not be exposed. Chapter 2385. Luo Qingtong's face was indifferent. She looked at Master Chen and said, "Do you think I will answer you?" No, on the contrary. She was happy to accept Master Chen's imagination. You? Master Chen's face was pale. Did Luo Qingtong really come prepared as he thought? Then, at this moment, did she also calculate that he would escape, so she deliberately intercepted him here? Were there any of her men around here? Master Chen's heart was full of doubts. He looked at the air around him and hesitated to the extreme. At this moment, Luo Qingtong suddenly said, "Okay, don't hide anymore. Come out." As she spoke, Luo Qingtong suddenly shot out a stream of energy from her hand. In an instant, with a boom, a ripple suddenly spread out from the place where Luo Qingtong's energy was shot out. Then, one figure after another appeared from the ripples of space. Boom! Master Chen's heart skipped a beat as soon as he saw those figures. He instantly believed Luo Qingtong's words. He directly ignored his serious injuries and attacked again. His inscription mark was extremely tough and was at the level of a heaven-level spirit seal master. Even if such an inscription mark was forcibly self-destructed, the inscription power in his body would not dissipate instantly. Under the circumstances of using some secret methods, he could still exert a lot of strength. Boom! As Master Chen attacked, the attack in his hand suddenly burst out like a rain curtain and rushed towards those figures. With Master Chen's eyesight, he could naturally feel that the strength of those figures opposite him was much stronger than Luo Qingtong. They were even not much inferior to him before. There were so many powerhouses. Who was the opponent? That Xieqi really had an extraordinary background. Master Chen's heart was full of resentment. He almost spared no effort and attacked forward. Idiot! Seeing Master Chen's action, Yu Mingqian's voice was cold. Her body was hidden under a black robe, and even her face was covered. He didn't know how Luo Qingtong discovered their existence. Obviously, with the opponent's strength, she should not be able to detect their existence. Yu Mingqian's eyes were cold as she flicked her finger. Buzz! The force he shot out from his hand turned into a huge inscription pattern in the air. In an instant, it eliminated the violent power that Master Chen desperately shot out. The inscription pattern versus the inscription mark. He won so easily. It completely ignored the common inscription mark, that only the inscription mark could resist it. Master Chen's face suddenly changed. He looked at the black-robed men standing in front of him, and the muscles on his face twitched heavily. In this world, the only one who could use inscription patterns to break a battle inscription mark was the battle inscription mark that he had risked his life to create. Only one person. Yu. He looked at Yu Miqian, who was surrounded by a group of black-robed men in shock. In an instant he understood her identity. He also directly knew the origin of the group of black-robed men. People from the Central Inscription Association. They were from the Central Inscription Association. Chapter 2386. Speaking of Yu Miqian, he was a legendary figure in the Central Inscription Union. Since the establishment of the Central Inscription Union for so many years, he was the only one who had appeared since ancient times. Legend had it that he had a natural comprehension of inscription techniques. Any inscription pattern in his hands was like a child's drawing. Not only that, he could also inscribe extremely powerful inscription patterns with very little strength. In his hands, the power of all the inscription patterns would be greatly amplified. Legend had it that before he became a spirit seal master, he was already able to inscribe inscription patterns at this level. After advancing to the level of spirit seal master, the power of the inscription patterns he casually inscribed was comparable to ordinary battle inscription marks. Therefore, Yu Mingqian's attack just now was so easy. It easily broke the battle inscription mark that Master Chen had thrown out with his life. After guessing Yu Mingqian's identity, Master Chen's face turned even paler. This was because he knew his identity. He was a traitor of the Central Inscription Union. Not only that, the reason he betrayed the Central Inscription Union was because there might be something on the 7th floor of the inscription tower. The whereabouts of the god's inscription. Back then, Master Chen had accidentally found out about the god's inscription and was hunted down by the Central Inscription Union. For so many years, the Central Inscription Union had never given up on hunting him down. And Master Chen had also found out that there might be the whereabouts of the god's inscription tower in Tianfeng Inscription City, after so many years of searching. If not for this, why would he, a dignified heaven-level spirit seal master and a battle spirit master, join a third-rate inscription city like Lungyu Inscription City and play tricks for them? Cripple the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord. and seized the inscription tower of Tianfeng Inscription City? It was because he didn't want to leak the news of the Tianfeng Inscription Tower and wanted to hide his identity to obtain the item on the 7th floor of the inscription tower. However, all of his plans were shattered by the appearance of Luo Qingtong. Now, the people of the Central Inscription Union had appeared directly in front of him, and the person leading the team was Yu Mingqian, who was known as the #1 person below the president of the Central Inscription Union. This person's inscription prowess was something that even the elders of the Central Union could not compare to. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't cultivate martial arts due to his weak body, he wouldn't have been able to become a battle soul master. Even the president wouldn't have been his match. Master Chun had lost all hope when such a powerful man had personally led a team to capture him, especially when he was in such a sorry state and was severely injured. As for Luo Qingtong's existence, he imagined that she was a hidden secret of the Central Inscription Association, a rising star, and a genius. As a result, he no longer had any thoughts of resisting. No wonder Xie was able to stop him at the right time. It turned out that he had already been targeted by the people from the Central Union. With that thought in mind, Master Chen's face turned gloomy. Young. His lips trembled as he prepared to beg Yu Mingyu for mercy regarding the matter of the inscription of God. Even though the other party already knew the whereabouts of the divine inscriptions on the 7th floor of the inscription tower, they still didn't dare to offend him. However, there were still some things related to the divine inscriptions that he didn't know. He could use this to exchange for a chance to live. Chapter 2387. However, just as he opened his mouth, boom! Luo Qingtong, who had been standing to the side and watching him and Yu Mingqian fight, moved. Bang! At a close distance, the light of the life and death yin-yang sword in Luo Qingtong's hand flew up in an instant and slashed towards Master Chen. This ray of light was piercingly cold. It attacked almost as soon as Master Chen recognized Yu Mingqian's identity and was about to speak. At that time, Master Chen's desperate attack had just been defeated by the light of the inscription pattern released by Yu Mingqian. And because he thought that Luo Qingtong and Yu Mingqian were in cahoots, he didn't guard against Luo Qingtong at all. After all, in Master Chen's opinion, Luo Qingtong's words before were all to scare him. Since the other party was from the Central Inscription Association, it was naturally impossible for them to ignore the orders of the Central Inscription Association and attack him. Not to mention, with Yu Mingqian and the others here, it was even more impossible for them to let him die. After all, they still needed to ask him about the inscription of God. However, Master Chen didn't expect that all of this was misled by Luo Qingtong. She had nothing to do with Yu Mingqian and the others at all. She only noticed that someone was spying in the dark, so she deliberately exposed Yu Mingqian and the others' whereabouts to create an opportunity to attack Master Chen. After all, it was very likely that the other party knew what was on the 7th floor. Luo Qingtong couldn't let him leave alive and spread the news that she had obtained the whereabouts of the inscription of God. Boom! Luo Qingtong's sword was fast and ruthless. Except for Yu Mingqian, who had a premonition from the beginning, even the other men in black didn't react. Luo Qingtong actually dared to attack Master Chen in front of them. After all, they knew in their hearts that the other party was not in cahoots with them at all. When she saw them, shouldn't she take advantage of the moment when they were entangled with Master Chen to immediately leave? Almost all the men in black thought that the purpose of Luo Qingtong calling out their whereabouts was to seize the opportunity to leave. Only Yu Mingqian saw through Luo Qingtong's plan. Boom! After he had broken Master Chen's attack, he flicked his sleeve and said, Master Chen! The silvery white brocade fluttered and released an inscription pattern, blocking Luo Qingtong's attack. Catch her! Yu Mingqian's voice was ice cold. Therefore, it was highly likely that Master Chen had already obtained the item he was looking for. He didn't care if it had anything to do with the divine inscriptions or not. He had to bring Luo Qingtong and Master Chen back with him. However, just as his voice rang out, with a boom, something astonishing happened. The ray of light from Luo Qingtong's life and death yin-yang sword pierced through the inscription pattern in midair and struck Master Chen heavily. In an instant, blood spurted out. Master Chen's head was directly split in half by Luo Qingtong's sword. He didn't resist at all. He didn't even have time to react before he became a ghost under Luo Qingtong's sword. What? Yu Mingqian's heart clenched tightly. His eyes hidden under the black hood stared directly at Luo Qingtong. Clear and cold, dark and heavy. Chapter 2388. Yu Mingqian's gaze was fixed on Luo Qingtong. This was the first time he couldn't see through a person. The other party's strength wasn't particularly strong, but every time she did something, her methods were unexpected. Previously, at the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord Mansion, he thought that the City Lord and the others were dead for sure. He didn't expect her to reverse the situation. Not only that, the other party had just forcibly broken through his attack and killed Chen Meng. How on earth did she do it? After Luo Qingtong's attack succeeded, she immediately flew away. When she was at the Tianfeng Inscription City Lord Mansion, she had already noticed Yu Mingqian and the others hiding in the dark. It was only because she noticed it a little late that she revealed a lot of her trump cards. However, she hid the power of the life and death yin-yang sword. Otherwise, she wouldn't have succeeded in one strike. As for why Yu Mingqian was puzzled that she could penetrate his attack and kill Master Chen, it was naturally because after the life and death yin-yang sword was upgraded, the life and death qi could move according to Luo Qingtong's wishes. When the sword slashed out just now, when it hit the inscription pattern of Yu Mingqian in midair, Luo Qingtong had already turned it into life qi. The life qi was full of vitality and didn't have any offensive power. Naturally, it wouldn't collide with the power of Yu Mingqian's inscription pattern and directly pass through it. When it hit Master Chen's body, the life qi turned back into the death qi. Under such circumstances, Luo Qingtong was able to kill Master Chen with one strike. It was also because of the effect of the life and death yin-yang sword's upgrade that Luo Qingtong dared to take the risk of discovering the whereabouts of Yu Mingqian and the others. Otherwise, she would have shot herself in the foot if she failed to divert Master Chen's attention, and Master Chen took advantage of the situation to sneak away. Luo Qingtong's figure was extremely fast and disappeared in front of the group of black-clothed men in an instant. The latter and the others only came to their senses when Luo Qingtong's figure disappeared and hurriedly chased after Luo Qingtong. However, Luo Qingtong had blood eye. How could she give them a chance to catch her? It would have been fine if these men in black had reacted in advance and stopped her. With so many powerhouses, Luo Qingtong may not be able to successfully break through. But now, she had already seized the opportunity to leave, so how could she still be caught? Luo Qingtong's figure completely disappeared in front of the group of black-robed men. The latter and the others searched for her for a while, but they couldn't find her whereabouts, so they could only give up. Young guild master, please punish us for our incompetence. The group of black-clothed men returned. They knelt in front of Yu Mingqian, feeling incomparably guilty. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly when speaking. They never thought that Luo Qingtong would be able to escape so easily in front of them. If Luo Qingtong's strength was tyrannical, they would be no match for her. Unfortunately, Luo Qingtong's strength was ordinary. Even her inscription strength was only at the senior inscription master level. The group of black-clothed men lowered their heads and didn't dare to raise them at all. Yu Mingqian's face was indifferent. He looked in the direction Luo Qingtong had left, and his eyes never left her from the beginning to the end. His expression was strange. When he brought people to capture Chen Meng, he never thought that he would fail. Moreover, he was defeated at the hands of a young man he had never heard of. Chapter 2389. Xie Qi. His cold, jade-like eyes looked in the direction that Luo Qingtong had left in and flickered slightly. Bring Chen Meng's body back. Also investigate this young man called Xie Qi for me. Let's see who he is. Like Master Chen, Yu Mingqian didn't believe that Luo Qingtong was just a nobody. However, this young man had all kinds of abilities and extraordinary means. He had never even heard of him. When did such a person appear in this endless star field? Yu Mingqian's eyes narrowed. The men in black kneeling in front of him hurriedly agreed. At the same time, a man in black mustered up his courage and said, "Young President, Xie claims to be Song Cheng's disciple. Should we make a move on the people of Tianfeng Inscription City?" As he spoke, his eyes were filled with coldness and sternness. Master Chen was the person that their main president wanted to capture. After many years of planning, they finally found traces of him. The main president had even appointed the young president to capture him personally. It was obvious how important he was to this. Now that Chen Meng was dead, even if they brought his body back, they would probably be punished. Therefore, he wondered if he should make a move on the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City and the others. After all, looking at how Luo Qingtong had helped the city lord of Tianfeng Inscription City and the others, he must have a deep relationship with them. However, as soon as he spoke, he heard Yu Mingqian's cold voice. "No need, he's just a stepping stone." If the other party really thought so highly of Song Cheng and the others, he wouldn't have left so quickly. He wouldn't have deliberately exposed their figures, just to kill Chen Meng, when he knew that they were hiding. How was Song Cheng and the others even worthy of his attention at all? Just as Master Chen had guessed, Yu Mingqian also thought that Luo Qingtong had appeared in Tianfeng Inscription City under the name of Song Cheng's disciple. He only wanted to borrow Master Chen's help to obtain the item on the 7th level of the inscription tower. Since that was the case, capturing Song Cheng and the others would be useless. It would be easy for others to criticize him. Yu Mingqian had always disdained to give others something to talk about. People would think that he was purposely shirking his responsibility. She escaped from my hands. Naturally, I will capture her and find out everything about Chen Meng. Report this matter to the Federation of Trade Unions and tell them that I have a way to find her. Tell foster father and the others not to worry. Yu Mingqian's voice was indifferent and cold. The group of black-clothed men hurriedly complied. With the young master's support, they naturally didn't have to worry so much. As for the young man named Xie, how could he possibly escape from the young master's pursuit? Previously, he was just taking advantage of the fact that they weren't paying attention. If they had come prepared, the youth named Xie would not have had a chance to escape. With this thought in mind, everyone immediately calmed down. As for the black-clothed man who had suggested to attack Song Cheng and the others, he did not mention it again. In fact, he was just casually saying it to see if he could find a breakthrough. He didn't really want to obtain any method to deal with Luo Qingtong from Song Cheng and the others. After all, the appearance of the young man was too strange. In their hearts, they didn't really believe that Luo Qingtong would appear because of Song Cheng and the others and be controlled by them. Chapter 2390. Phew, I've finally gotten rid of them. Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes. Those black-clothed men were extremely powerful, especially the person who stopped her from killing Master Chen. His inscription skills were even more unfathomable. Even if Luo Qingtong used her blood eyes, she might not be able to defeat Master Chen's battle inscription mark with her inscription patterns. However, that black-clothed man had done it easily. If it wasn't for the fact that the other party's inscription skills were far above Master Chen's, then it was because the other party's control over inscription patterns was terrifying. No matter which one it was, it meant that his identity was not ordinary. Fortunately, she had made the prompt decision to expose their tracks and take advantage of Master Chen's suspicion to kill them by force. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. Luo Qingtong thought about it, and the light in her eyes became even colder. She could tell that those black-clothed men were here for Master Chen. It was even possible that they were here for his purpose of coming to Tianfeng Inscription City, which was the inscription tower. If that was the case, if she couldn't kill Master Chen this time, the fact that she had obtained something from the 7th floor of the inscription tower, or even the divine inscription, would be exposed. Luo Qingtong didn't know if Master Chen knew that the thing on the 7th floor of the inscription tower was the divine inscription. However, as long as there was a slight possibility that the matter of her obtaining the divine inscription would be exposed, Luo Qingtong wouldn't allow it. Therefore, Master Chen had to die. Let's go, let's leave this place first. Luo Qingtong said to Little Pig, who had popped its head out of her arms. The latter had just jumped out of her sleeve. Hearing this, it immediately said to her, "Ah, leave this place. You're not going back to Tianfeng Inscription City?" It looked at Luo Qingtong and said, "I'm not going back." Luo Qingtong shook her head indifferently. "Those black-clothed men are very likely from the Central Inscription Association." Luo Qingtong wasn't very clear about the division of forces in the outer realm. However, considering Master Chen's previous identity as a heavenly level spirit seal master and battle spirit master, there were not many people in the world who could follow him without him noticing. With such a powerful inscription skill, the chances of him being someone from the Central Inscription Association were extremely high. Luo Qingtong clearly knew that it was extremely likely that the other party was eyeing Heavenly Wind Inscription City, and might even be eyeing Heavenly Wind Inscription Tower. Wouldn't that be walking right into a trap? In any case, the matters in Heavenly Wind Inscription City were more or less settled. The people from Lungyu Inscription City had launched an ambush in the middle of the night. Moreover, she and Song Cheng had returned alive. This meant that the people from Lungyu Inscription City had lost the contest for the Inscription Tower. In addition to the bet that she had signed with the people from Lungyu City, the people from Lungyu City could no longer pose any threat to Tianfeng City. It didn't matter whether Luo Qingtong went back or not. If she went back, it would be easy for people to wait for her. She was not stupid. What about Song Cheng and the others? Aren't you afraid that those men in black will find trouble with them? Little Pig said. Especially Song Cheng, he was her master. Could it be that Luo Qingtong didn't care about him? This wasn't Luo Qingtong's personality. Luo Qingtong glanced at it. If I don't go back, it will be the greatest help to them. Her master and disciple relationship with Song Cheng came suddenly. She had asked Song Cheng to help her set up her identity long ago. Chapter 2391. Under such circumstances, how could they waste their energy to deal with Song Cheng and the rest? As long as she didn't go back, Song Cheng and the rest wouldn't be implicated. On the contrary, if she went back and was caught, even if she was lucky enough to escape, Song Cheng and the rest would be in big trouble. It would be better to give the other party the illusion that she would leave immediately after achieving her goal. In fact, that was the case. After Yu Miqian and the rest left, they stayed in Tianfeng Inscription City for a while. Firstly, they wanted to find out what Master Chen was doing in Tianfeng Inscription City. Secondly, they wanted to see if there was any relationship between Luo Qingtong and Song Cheng and the rest. After all, if Luo Qingtong was really related to Song Cheng and the rest, she would definitely come back to take a look. At that time, they would be able to catch a turtle in a jar. However, Luo Qingtong didn't come back in the end. This made Yu Mingqian's subordinates completely dispel the idea of dealing with Song Cheng and the rest. After all, who would be willing to do something that was completely useless? On the other hand, Yu Mingqian looked at the wisp of aura in his hand. This was something he had extracted from the wound on Chen Meng's corpse. Yu Mingqian raised his hand and instantly, a small inscription array appeared in front of him. If one looked carefully, they would realize that the lines of this array were the same as the inscription lines array that Luo Qingtong had been teleported over. Inscription Man-Searching Array. The inscription array that could only be activated after gathering the power of Tianfeng Inscription City for so many years, was now presented in Yu Mingqian's palm in an extremely small and exquisite manner. It was displayed by him. If Song Cheng and the rest were to come and see this, they would probably cry out in surprise. The other party's inscription technique ability had simply reached a level that could shock the world. However, the wisp of aura that Yu Miqian had obtained couldn't be like how Song Cheng had summoned Luo Qingtong. He couldn't directly summon her from across the star field. After all, this wasn't a physical object, and the aura was too faint. However, it was still possible to track Luo Qingtong's whereabouts. Yu Mingqian's eyes narrowed slightly. He directly released a wave of energy and activated the array. At this moment, in a star field not far away from Tianfeng region, a group of people was rushing towards Tianfeng region. The man in the lead had black hair and black clothes. He wore a golden jade crown and wore a white jade mask. His eyes were as sharp as swords. Behind him, two men who were also wearing white jade masks. Swoosh! A golden light's Yumichian. Master. The man in front of him, with the black man in the star field. He with the black man in front of Yumichian's face. According to the news from the underground palace, a young man called Xie has appeared in Tianfeng Inscription City. They suspect that he's an evil doctor. You with withs. S with you of ts of U's. You wet to you. S with he raised his hand, and took the letter from Beiqing. After glancing at it, he said in a hoarse voice, "Let's go over first." Yi Qianxian's voice was very deep and cold. He had spent a lot of effort to find out that Luo Qingtong might have been summoned to Tianfeng region. However, he didn't know her exact location. Chapter 2392. Yes. Feng Yu and Beiqing answered in unison. Then Feng Yu hesitated for a moment before looking at Yi Qianxian and asking, "Master, about Tiandu." His heart was filled with worry. Master had left Tiandu by force. After His Majesty summoned Master back, he was ready to choose an imperial concubine for him. Master was unwilling, so he left by force. The two of them even got into a fight. If it weren't for the fact that her master had recovered some of her strength, and the strength of her meridians, due to the evil doctor's treatment, she would have been imprisoned in the palace by now. But even so, His Majesty didn't completely give up. After they left, the powerhouses of Tiandu came out in full force, searching for Yi Qianxian's whereabouts all over the world. Under such circumstances, Feng Yu's heart was naturally worried. They didn't care. His Majesty wouldn't kill them, but if the identity of the evil doctor was exposed, let the people of Nether Palace stop them. Spread my whereabouts and appearance everywhere in the star field to lure them away. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. He naturally knew what his good imperial father was planning. The other party simply wanted him to give birth to a few more children before he died, so that he could continue his bloodline. It would be best if he had a few more heavenly vein bodies. Even if they only had half of his physique, it didn't matter. As long as they were under his control, it would be fine. But how could he do as his father wished? Not to mention that he already wanted Luo Qingtong. Even if he never met Luo Qingtong in this life, he wouldn't follow her arrangements. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up all his strength and power, and left True Spill Continent. Unfortunately, his father didn't seem to understand this truth, and only wanted to force him to submit. Unfortunately, in this world, he would only follow his own heart. No one could control his life and thoughts. It's time for Nether Palace to return. Yi Qianxian's voice was cold. Because he couldn't solve the heavenly vein body, he had almost scattered his forces. Whether it was the foundation that Heaven Capital had laid down for him, or the Black Nether Palace that he had secretly established, all of it had been dissolved by him. He only brought a portion of his elite troops to True Spill Continent. Yi Qianxian's thinking was very simple. If he could find a way to cure the heavenly vein body in the True Spill Continent, then he would return to Heaven Capital. At that time, everything could be rebuilt with a wave of his hand. If not, those forces and strengths were no longer important to him. It didn't matter what happened in the end. However, at this time, Yi Qianxian had decided to return to Tiandu because of Luo Qingtong. Previously, he'd had his people reorganize their forces in the outer realms. Although he had only integrated a small part of it, he could still use it to play a game of hide-and-seek with his father. Naturally, he would protect his woman. No one could lay a finger on her. Yes. Feng Yu and the others nodded in agreement. Beiqing was especially elated. Black Nether Palace was an influence that Yi Qianxian had single-handedly established. Master Strength had once disdained the heavens and stood at the pinnacle. No one could compare to him. Black Nether Palace was an incomparably tyrannical force among the many star fields. No one dared to provoke them. But as Master retired, Black Nether Palace's influence gradually shrank and disappeared. Now that Master had given the order, Black Nether Palace would return to the star fields. At that time, everyone would know that the Master of Black Nether Palace had returned. Chapter 2393. The group of people agreed loudly, but Yi Qianxian narrowed his eyes and looked at the place where his left ring finger was. That place should have been where he was wearing the Shifeng dragon ring, but now, there was nothing there. It was empty, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable in his heart. The Shifeng dragon ring was the symbol of the young emperor of Tiandu, and it was also the keepsake of the future successor of Tiandu. At the same time, it was also the medium through which Yi Qianxian and Luo Qingtong could contact each other. However, when he left Tiandu, in order to prevent the emperor of Tiandu from using the connection between the Shifeng dragon ring and the royal family to confirm his whereabouts, Yi Qianxian had forcefully used his own strength to take it down and seal it. Right now, the Shifeng dragon ring was in his storage ring. As long as he didn't take it out, his good father wouldn't be able to find his whereabouts. He also wouldn't be able to use the connection between the Shifeng dragon ring and the Nine Nether Phoenix ring to make a move on Luo Qingtong. Of course, the other party might not put Luo Qingtong in his eyes, let alone make a move on her. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. Yi Qianxian wouldn't even let the other party have the slightest chance. His Qingtong was a peerless pearl that he held in his hands. The emperor of Tiandu didn't realize how powerful and brilliant she was now. One day, he would regret looking down on Luo Qingtong today. As for Yi Qianxian, he only needed to protect Luo Qingtong well, and not let her be obstructed or harmed before she grew up. Let's go to Tianfeng Inscription City. He really wanted to see that cunning and willful woman. It didn't matter even if he was angered to the point of jumping his feet when they met. The group of people rushed to Tianfeng Inscription City. And in Tianfeng Inscription City, after a few days of nourishment, the wisp of aura that came from Luo Qingtong killing Master Chen in Yu Mingqian's hand became thicker and thicker. After that wisp of aura had been nourished to a very solid state, Yu Mingqian clasped his hands together. In an instant, the inscription man-seeking formation in his hand glowed brightly. Shwa! A faintly discernible ray of light rose into the air and swept toward the void. In an instant, the beam of light pierced through the void and rushed toward a city in the Tianfeng domain. At this moment, Luo Qingtong was carrying Little Pig into the city gate. The mask on her face had been taken off, revealing a face covered by a large birthmark. Because of the birthmark, her originally beautiful face looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. Under such circumstances, almost no one wanted to get close to Luo Qingtong. They waved their palms in front of their faces and said angrily, "What bad luck! Why did I run into such an ugly little beggar?" That's right, it was the little beggar. Luo Qingtong smeared the part of her face that still looked white and clean, trying to make her face unrecognizable. She was wearing an ordinary linen dress with half of her sleeves rolled up. She was carrying a black pig in her hand. With such an appearance, it would be strange if those who wanted to get close to her didn't retreat. And this was the result that Luo Qingtong wanted. On the other hand, Little Pig's entire person, no pig, was indescribably lifeless. Originally, he was only good at being pink and cute, but now, he was dyed black by Luo Qingtong. His heart was in pain. Chapter 2394. While it was muttering in its heart, Luo Qingtong raised her head with a swoosh. Buzz! In the sky, a faintly discernible virtual line swept in her direction. Looking at the power of the light that seemed to come straight from the void, Luo Qingtong's eyes flickered slightly. She was glad that she had the habit of opening her blood pupil to check the surrounding defenses and arrangements whenever she arrived at a place. Otherwise, she would not have been able to detect the appearance of this light. Seeing the light rushing towards her, Luo Qingtong immediately dodged and rushed into a dark alley, even though there was no murderous intent or malice in the light. "Oh, I need to go to the washroom." Her voice was loud and careless, with the coarse voice of a teenager who had undergone puberty. Several practitioners, who were shocked by her actions, spat fiercely when they saw her running into the alley and ignored her. There was no need to pay attention to such an ignorant and uneducated little beggar. After rushing into the alley, Luo Qingtong narrowed her eyes and stood still with a swoosh. She stood in the depths of the alley and watched the light that rushed out of the void turn in midair and continue to rush towards her. Her eyes flashed fiercely. Swoosh! She raised her hand and drew out the life and death sword. A sword light slashed towards the invisible light in midair. If it were not for the reflection of Luo Qingtong's blood pupil, she would not have been able to see it at all. Bang! The sword light slashed heavily on the virtual line. If it were an ordinary weapon, it would not have been able to hurt this invisible virtual line. However, Luo Qingtong's life and death sword was different. The life and death qi that it carried were the most original forces in the world. This virtual line was invisible and untouchable in the eyes of others. However, when Luo Qingtong slashed out with her sword, it was immediately shattered. Not only that, but the light of life and death was also rotating in reverse. It seemed to follow the power of the illusory line of light. With a boom, it blended with the power of the illusory line of light and rushed back. Boom, boom, boom. In the Heavenly Wind Inscription City, Yu Mingqian's room was filled with thousands of waves. Luo Qingtong's sword slashed out. Not only did it shatter Yu Mingqian's illusory line of power, but it also backfired on him. Bang! The inscription man-searching formation in Yu Mingxuan's palm exploded into pieces in an instant. Not only that, but the power of inscription patterns rose around him one after another. But they were completely unable to stop the backlash from the inscription man-hunting formation in his hand. With a boom, his figure suddenly retreated, and a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. In the center of his palm, there was a deep and bright red mark. Just a little bit more, and his palm would have been cut in half. Yu Mingxuan's pair of eyes that were as cold as jade and as dark as the abyss became extremely deep and dark in an instant. He looked at the red mark on his palm and raised his hand to wipe away the trace of blood on his lips. She actually broke my inscription formation? His eyes narrowed slightly. After so many years, this was the first time he had met someone who could break his inscription formation like this. He did not know how many thousands of miles away, and he did not even come into contact with his inscription formation. How could she break his formation just like that? Moreover, it had even caused a backlash from his formation, and it had almost caused him to be seriously injured. Chapter 2395. Yu Miqian was even more interested in the young man named Xieqi. He waved his hand, and in an instant, the aura of the broken inscription man-hunting array was gathered in his hand. Then, with a swoosh, the faintly discernible figure appeared in the broken aura of the inscription man-hunting array. The young man was wearing a coarse linen shirt, and the birthmark on his face almost covered his entire face. He looked very hideous and disgusting. However, the light in her eyes was extraordinarily charming. A faint bloody light rippled in his eyes. It was extremely evil and demonic, making people unable to look away. This was a pair of bewitching eyes like a demon. Yu Miqian stared at the pair of eyes and suddenly laughed. Xieqi. With a wave of his sleeve, he crushed the aura in his palm. He had changed his mind. The inscription ability that the other party had displayed was amazing. The ability that she had shown when she killed Master Chen was still within his acceptable range. Now, she was able to break his inscription man-hunting array from 1,000 miles away. Not only that, but she also caused the array to backfire. This was a bit beyond his expectations. The other party might really have information about the inscription of God. Yu Mingqian originally only suspected that Chun Meng betrayed the Central Inscription Association because of the inscription of God. Now, after seeing Luo Qingtong's performance, he was a bit more certain. If this was the case, then he couldn't use the previous method to deal with the other party. Moreover, his inscription man-hunting array was broken by the other party. If he couldn't lock onto the other party's tracks, it would be easy for her to escape. If this was the case, Yu Mingqian narrowed his eyes. He raised his hand and stroked the silver ring on his left index finger. The butterfly pattern on it was vivid and lifelike. As he stroked it, it seemed to vibrate its wings and was about to fly out. Then let's have some fun. He chuckled, flicked his sleeve and walked out. In the alley, Luo Qingtong narrowed her bloody eyes and looked at the illusory energy that had been shattered by her. In the end, it whistled sharply and rolled back. She frowned slightly. It's the power of the inscription. Luo Qingtong couldn't be wrong. After all, Song Chung had used a similar method to summon her to Sky Wind Inscription City. Yu Mingqian's inscription manhunting array was different from the one Song Chung and the others had used. But Luo Qingtong could still sense it. Someone is tracking my whereabouts. Luo Qingtong thought for a moment and figured out what was going on. It should be those men in black. Thinking of the leader of the black-clothed man, Yu Mingqian, whose inscription strength was far beyond ordinary people, Luo Qingtong's brows tightened even more. Fortunately, she discovered it in time. Otherwise, once she was stuck, it would not be so easy to get rid of it. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong immediately put away the long sword in her hand. As she walked out of the alley towards the city, she said to the little pig in her arms, "Go and see if Tuanzi is awake later. When I wake up, let it restore my face." At that time, she would change her appearance again and guarantee that those men in black would not be able to find her whereabouts. However, as soon as Luo Qingtong spoke, she felt the little pig in her arms suddenly stiffen. "And master, you don't know?" The little pig looked at her with trembling eyes. "That face can't be changed back for the time being." Swoosh. When Luo Qingtong heard its words, she stopped in her tracks. Chapter 2396. What do you mean by that? What do you mean by temporarily unable to change back? Luo Qingtong's eyes glinted dangerously. Little pig, on the other hand, trembled even more violently. "That's exactly what I mean," it cried. At that time, I was going to finish what I wanted to say, but it was too late. And then your actions were too fast. In short, that little furball said that the power it used to change your face was the last bit of power it had left. Once it changed, it couldn't change back. Unless its strength was restored. Little Pig's voice trailed off as it spoke. That little furball was a realm beast. How could it be so easy to restore its strength? Ordinary spiritual energy and strength wouldn't be of much use to its recovery. Therefore, Luo Qingtong could only live with this nearly disfigured face for a short period of time. Little Pig was originally going to remind Luo Qingtong when they were in the transmission array. However, before it could say anything, they arrived at the destination. Luo Qingtong immediately agreed. There was no way for it to stop her, okay? Little Pig mumbled as he thought of this. Its two ears were limp and drooped on its forehead, making it look pitiful. That's enough. Luo Qingtong was speechless as she looked at Little Pig's pitiful act. However, the situation at that time was indeed like this. And judging from the fact that they were about to arrive at the destination, even if Little Pig reminded her, she would definitely choose to change her face. In that case, she couldn't blame Little Pig. If she didn't get rid of this birthmark, even if she disguised herself in the future, there would always be a flaw. Forget it, there were benefits to not getting rid of it. Those black-robed men would think that this was her real appearance. Like this, once she returned to the true Spill continent and changed her face back, no one would be able to associate her with Xie Qi. With this in mind, Luo Qingtong wasn't anxious at all. At most, it would be a little troublesome. Once and for all in the future, it wouldn't be bad. Luo Qingtong immediately put Little Pig down and continued to walk toward the city with him in her arms. This was a mercenary city, just like Heavenly Wind Inscription City. This was also a unique city in the Heavenly Wind region. This city was specially built for the rogue cultivators who wandered around the edge of power. Many cultivators cultivated to a certain realm without relying on a sect because of a moment's opportunity or personal talent. They didn't want to join a sect or be bound by restrictions. However, they needed to secure cultivation resources. That was why a place like Mercenary City existed. The rogue cultivators gathered together and formed mercenary groups to accept missions in Mercenary City. Large mercenary groups were strong enough to compete with sects. However, there were not as many rules. If they wanted to, they could stay in a mercenary group. If they couldn't, there were no restrictions. The mercenaries gathered together because of the benefits. There was cooperation and division of labor. They could get what they wanted, but they didn't need to join a sect. This went along with the wishes of many people. Even some sect disciples would come to Mercenary City to form teams and train with others when they wanted to obtain something they needed, or hired mercenaries to act on his behalf. This kind of thing was very common. Chapter 2397. That's right, Luo Qingtong wanted to return to the true Spill continent. But she didn't know where to go. She also didn't know which star field the true Spill continent belonged to. It was reasonable to say that Song Qing should have told her this. But wasn't this just a plan that couldn't keep up with the changes? Luo Qingtong originally wanted to wait until the matter at Heavenly Wind Inscription City was resolved, and then ask Song Qing to tell her about returning. But who would have thought that the black-robed men would be implicated? Now that Luo Qingtong couldn't return to Heavenly Wind Inscription City, she could only find another way to return to the true Spill continent. And the most important thing was to determine where the true Spill continent was. Luckily, when Luo Qingtong left earlier, she overheard someone talking about the mercenary city on the way. She naturally came over. Asking those mercenaries to help her inquire about things was naturally better than asking around blindly. Moreover, it was convenient and fast, and wouldn't attract attention. Luo Qingtong walked to a tall building located in the center of the city. This was the place where the various mercenary groups and powerhouses issued and accepted missions. There were all kinds of mission descriptions here. Luo Qingtong glanced around, and found that there were people coming and going, and it was very noisy. There were all kinds of noisy laughter and shouts mixed in. The voices were extremely loud, and it was as noisy as a market. Her appearance in the mercenary city didn't attract anyone's attention. Luo Qingtong looked around, and soon found the place to check for information. But just as she was about to ask someone to help find the whereabouts of the true Spill continent, she found that she had no money. That's right, it was the literal meaning. She was poor. Luo Qingtong listened to the other party report the price, and then looked at the money she had left. She instantly felt a headache. How long had it been since she had worried about money? Luo Qingtong's lips twitched, and she lifted Little Pig out of the room. Can I use this to pay first? Before she could finish her sentence, Little Pig began to squeal in an instant. It hugged Luo Qingtong's hand and cried bitterly. In Luo Qingtong's mind it said, "Master, you can't do this. Master, I promise I won't do that again. Don't sell me out." Luo Qingtong looked at it speechlessly. He was just using it to pay off his debt first, and he could redeem it later. Why was it looking like it wanted to die? However, Luo Qingtong didn't know that Little Pig was afraid that if he sold himself, he would be eaten by someone else. How unjust would its death be? To think that it was an ancient divine pig. Alright, it was probably the most cowardly ancient mythological beast. However, it couldn't afford to offend this woman in front of it. Ayo, master. While Little Pig was trying his best to survive, the Mercenary Association members rejected Luo Qingtong's offer. "Sorry customer, we only accept cash here." The man in charge of the counter looked at her with disdain, and his face was full of disdain. She wanted to use a pig to pay off her debt? Did she think that this was a slaughterhouse? What's more, this pig didn't have any appearance, let alone attack power. What could a pig like this do? It wouldn't even be enough to fill the gaps between one's teeth. That man didn't even bother to pay attention to Luo Qingtong. A burly man beside him stood up and raised his hand to kick Luo Qingtong out. Go, go, go. Where did this little beggar come from? How dare you behave so atrociously here? Get lost. Chapter 2398. As he spoke, he directly tried to grab Luo Qingtong. His face was full of impatience. His hands were even covered with spiritual energy. A powerful and terrifying power lingered in his palm. Obviously, he didn't care whether Luo Qingtong would be hurt or not. He even deliberately wanted to teach her a lesson. Looking at the palm that was surrounded by lingering spirit chi grabbing towards him, he felt a chill run down his spine. Luo Qingtong's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. At this moment, a light and cold voice came from the side. Enough, Liao Lao-san, she's just a child. Do you black iron people have to be like this? While speaking, a hand reached out from the side and raised to catch the mercenary's hand. Luo Qingtong raised her head and saw a handsome face appear in front of her. The man's face was handsome and gentle. His whole temperament was very calm. After he caught the mercenary's hand, he said to Luo Qingtong, "Enough, little guy, leave here. This is not a place for you to be mischievous." The man's age looked no more than 25 years old, but he actually called her little guy. Luo Qingtong looked at her current beggar appearance. She had to admit that as a teenager, her appearance was indeed a little too small. Her figure was slender and tall, but that was only for women. As a boy, her figure and appearance were a little too childish and petite. There was a deep scar at the bottom corner of the man's left eye, which made his handsome and cold face look a bit rough and wild. But he didn't feel sinister or scary. On the contrary, it added a bit of wildness and domineering to his scholarly appearance. "Yo, Captain Gu." Seeing this man appear, the rough-looking mercenary immediately restrained himself. He looked at Luo Qingtong with disgust and said resentfully, "Enough, today I'll spare you for Captain Gu's sake. Get lost." As he spoke, he kicked towards Luo Qingtong, but the latter dodged. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. Hidden in the shadow of her head, she looked at him coldly, and then at Regiment Commander Gu. She didn't say anything. She only nodded at Regiment Commander Gu. Then, she pretended to be frightened and turned to leave. Luo Qingtong was very clear in her heart. If she were to lay her hands on that mercenary here, regardless of whether the other party would be able to find out in the end, she was afraid that this matter would be put under Commander Gu's name. The other party spoke up for her. Luo Qingtong couldn't let him take the blame, right? Let's wait for them to leave before we make our move. At that time, she would let this Liao Laosen know the consequences of bullying others. Luo Qingtong's eyes were cold. She carried Little Pig out of that place, and was about to head to another part of the hall. She had to think of a way to earn money. Thinking of this, Luo Qingtong suddenly felt a headache coming on. Ever since she became famous in her previous life, she never had to worry about money again. To her, money was just a number. After coming to this strange world, Luo Qingtong didn't have to worry about money, because she was the eldest daughter of the marquis household of the Eastern Li nation, and later became famous in the Black Field. But who would have thought that she would be summoned to this 6-star region by Song Chung, and become poor all of a sudden? When she thought of how she didn't have enough money to investigate, Luo Qingtong's brows immediately furrowed. Chapter 2399. Liao Laosan, what's the meaning of this? This is obviously purple blood realgar grass. How can you say that it's purple jade grass? There's a huge difference in price between the two. You better explain this to me clearly. At the counter where Luo Qingtong had just left, the man beside Gu Yifeng slammed his fist on the counter. He lifted his hand and dragged the rugged mercenary, named Liao Laosan, out from behind the counter, yelling at him loudly. The mercenary named Liao Laosan had a rough appearance, and looked like a burly man. But at this moment, the burly man standing beside Gu Yifeng was even thicker and stronger than him. He lifted Gu Yifeng up with one hand, like he was lifting a little chick. His eyes were wide open like copper bells. "Hujan!" Gu Yifeng shouted at the man. The latter immediately gritted his teeth, and put down Liao Laosan. Then, he looked at Gu Yifeng with an aggrieved expression and said, "Leader, you can't let them do whatever they want. These Black Iron people are taking advantage of the fact that they're in control of the Mercenary Association this year. They're deceiving us and embezzling our mission rewards. Look at the medicinal herbs we brought back. They've all been called inferior by him. But we've only managed to bring these herbs back after a narrow escape. These people are too much." Hu Zhan's words immediately attracted the agreement of many people in the hall. Yes, the Black Iron people are too much. They're in control of the mercenary city this year. All the missions in the city have to be accepted and completed through them. They're still not satisfied with this, and even tried to take advantage of the mission rewards. Who doesn't know that missions to find medicinal herbs are the most profitable and profitable? These guys cheated us of our money by downgrading the quality of the herbs by a grade, or even a few grades. Yes, not only that, they even colluded with other people who came to issue missions, and deliberately said that the herbs used to complete the missions were wrong. Not only did they embezzle the herbs, but they also reduced the mission rewards by more than half. A group of people were talking in low voices. Sai, there's nothing we can do. Who asked us to have no pharmacists here? We can only let them fool us. What else can we do? Everyone felt indignant, but there was nothing they could do. They were all rogue cultivators. It was already not easy for him to cultivate to his current level. How could he have the opportunity to learn alchemy and alchemy? One had to know that these two things burned the most resources. The pharmacist apprentices in Mercenary City were also under the control of the Mercenary Association. They would listen to whoever took over the Mercenary Association. The Mercenary Guild in Mercenary City was held by the various large mercenary groups in the city. This year, it just so happened that it was the Black Iron Rank's turn. If they wanted to tamper with the inspection and verification of the medicinal herbs, the group of mercenaries really had no way to stop them. After all, they didn't know anything about medicinal herbs. Everything was done according to the description of the quest. However, the medicinal herbs in this world were similar. For those who did not understand medicinal herbs, it was indeed very easy for them to find the wrong one. If they were to really confront each other, their side would not be able to win against the Black Iron people. Sure enough, after the mercenary heard Hu Zhan's words, he immediately raised his head and sneered. Yo! Hu Zhan, I respect you as a member of the Red Flame mercenary group, and gave you some face, but you don't want it? Since that's the case, then there's nothing more to say. This medicinal herb is the purple jade grass. It looks very similar to the purple blood realgar grass, but the effect is like heaven and earth. You Red Flame mercenary group people are just here to make up the numbers, and you still want to threaten me to change your words. The rewards from this mission will be confiscated. Not only that, I will also deduct your mission points. In the future, you Red Flame mercenary group people can wait to eat Northwest Wind. Liao Laosan said proudly. Just then, a voice interrupted from the side. Chapter 2400. As soon as he said that, everyone looked towards the direction of the voice. They saw a petite and thin figure appear in front of Gu Yifeng and the others. She raised her hand and reached for the jade box on the counter. Inside the jade box was precisely the medicinal herb that had stirred up controversy. When Liao Laosan saw this, he immediately grabbed the hand that was stretched out. Bah, you little beggar, what are you doing here? Did you touch the purple jade grass? What if you spoil it? Can you afford to compensate? Liao Laosan's face was big and his neck was thick. His eyes were as big as copper bells. He had already seen who the person who appeared was. Wasn't it the little beggar that he just drove away? He sneered and said, Yo, are you here to repay the kindness? He glanced at Gu Yifeng and the others as he sneered even more. Unfortunately, this is not something that can be casually brushed aside by pestering endlessly. You little beggar, if you have nothing to do, hurry up and get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for making a move on you. In Liao Laosan's view, Luo Qingtong had just received a favor from Gu Yifeng. So when she saw that there was a problem on the other side, she deliberately came to disturb the situation. However, what was the use of a little beggar's words? Not to mention her. Even if everyone in the hall spoke up for the Red Flame mercenary group, it would be of no use. The mercenary group's pharmacist was in their hands. If they said it was the purple jade grass, then it was the purple jade grass. Otherwise, the other party was a pharmacist or an alchemist. Otherwise, whatever she said would be useless. Liao Laosan's face was full of contempt. His gaze towards Luo Qingtong was full of threatening fierceness. Luo Qingtong glanced at him and ignored him. She was worried that she couldn't find a chance to deal with this Liao Laosan. As a result, the other party directly bumped into her hands. Moreover, this purple jade grass. Luo Qingtong looked at the medicinal herb in the jade box, and her lips curled up. She thought that she had found a way to make money without deliberately attracting attention. Luo Qingtong's hand stretched out towards the jade box. Liao Laosan saw this and was even more furious. Just then a hand grabbed his wrist. Let her see. Gu Yifeng's voice was cold. Behind him, the group of people from the Red Flame mercenary group also glared at Liao Laosan and the others. That's right, let her see. Damn it. I want to see if the grass that we risked our lives to bring back is really the purple-blooded realgar grass. Hu Zhan shouted. Kid, tell me everything you know. As long as what you say is reasonable, we will support you. Hu Zhan and the others were already panicking. The Mercenary Association was controlled by the Black Iron Mercenary Association. No matter how powerful the Red Flame Mercenary Group was, in terms of mission completion and acceptance, they were no match for the Ebon Mercenary Group. Seeing that Luo Qingtong seemed to know that this medicinal herb was not the purple jade grass, they didn't care so much. They also didn't care that Luo Qingtong looked just like a little beggar. Hu Zhan raised his hand and carried her in front of him to protect her. That pair of eyes that were bigger than copper bells instantly stared back at Liao Laosan. If they dared to make a move, he would teach them a lesson. The power of the Black Iron Mercenary Group was not as strong as the Red Flame Mercenary Group. They were able to become the leader of the Mercenary Association because they took turns to be the banker. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.